So here's another one, guys. As I say, we're doing this series of videos, which is really hoping to inspire people. Hopefully, that might be a bit optimistic. To gently challenge their local council to get some quick wins and some longer term wins as well, using the democratic system that's available. Now, I remember back when I started Just Us Up with John Allen in 2013, I went to see a councillor who was Councillor Christy Adams. She was a Conservative. And basically, I raised these issues about homelessness and kind of stuff I'd seen at the council. And she said, you know, what you need to do is you need to get a bunch of your mates to go into the housing committee. Everyone can ask one question and just everyone asks a question. So however many years later, that's kind of what we've been doing. And actually, we're cranking it up a few gears because we're getting Citizens UK involved. We're doing some community organising. So for the last housing committee in June 2023, we had like seven of our network, if that's the right word, mates, basically just kind of asking questions. So the next question, as I say, and we kind of won't reiterate all these things we're saying in every video, but the part of the point of these questions is to raise the issue with the councillors who are, you know, making decisions about the service in the council. So it's not always that there's kind of, you know, a specific win we've got in mind. You know, sometimes it's more just setting the scene. And this question is a good example. So this question was asked: does the council keep a register of rogue landlords, and if so, how many rogue landlords are on it? And does the council have concerns about the quality of private rented accommodation? Now, if you know, like Shannon and I, if you work in Bedford and have worked in Bedford for many years, you will know the names of half a dozen landlords basically who are of ill repute. Let's put it that way. And when we do training around the country, you know, when I say this, everyone kind of looks at each other and says, "Yeah, we've got those. Yeah, we know who they are as well." So rogue landlords are a problem. They're a particularly interesting problem for the council because councils sometimes need those rogue landlords to take clients that they don't know what else to do with. So they're kind of compromised in that sense. I remember when I worked at Bedford Borough Council, one of my colleagues who actually, you know, respected him, he's a nice guy, just basically said, we need these rogue landlords, you know, we need these landlords. Who else is going to house some of the people we've got? But legally speaking, and I don't know the legal backgrounds particularly well, but councils should have a register of rogue landlords. And it should be populated because councils can do a lot of good stuff, a lot of conservative stuff to challenge bad council behaviour, basically. And lots of landlords often don't know the law and, you know, kind of break the law inadvertently, but sometimes they also definitely harass their tenants, and they definitely illegally evict them, and they definitely, you know, make fraudulent housing benefit claims and all that sort of stuff. The question here, we actually knew, certainly, you know, I'd had a conversation with the person who asked the question. We kind of knew that there weren't anyone on the list of rogue landlords, but it was about kind of raising this issue with councillors because they wouldn't necessarily know that they were supposed to be a rogue landlord list, and they wouldn't know that no one was on it, because I'm sure within some councillors, you know, kind of surgeries, advice surgeries, they are getting the same names that we know, you know, that kind of out there kind of making a lot of money out of vulnerable people and abusing them. So that was a question, nice short, sharp question. It's probably going to lead to further questions because in one sense, you know, the fact they don't have anyone on the rogue landlord register, you know, that probably leads to some more questions of, well, why not? You know, and the answer essentially was this isn't actually within the housing committee's remit. It's actually an environmental health issue. So one sense, it's kind of like, well, go and ask the question at the environmental health committee. So that's what we're going to do at some point. I wonder if there's we need to just be kind of a little bit clever about how we ask the question, you know, so we can ask the same question again, but in one
Sorry,
sense,
just to stop you.
Yeah, go on.
You're wrong there. So it wasn't, they didn't say it was outside of the remit.
Okay.
What they said was they didn't have a representative from environmental health, the housing committee.
Okay.
So we don't need to ask it anywhere else. It was just, cool. It was answered by someone who wouldn't be normal to answer that sort of question.
Right.
But it was,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, like, I feel sorry for the head of service, because every time we ask these questions, he gets dragged into the committee. So he's missing his evening TV or whatever. So okay, yeah, cool. So essentially, we need to potentially refine a question or ask another question down a similar line in a subsequent meeting, because I would imagine it might be something we have to FOI, but I'd imagine that environmental health also know the names of the people that we're talking about. And I would imagine that even before they get to having them on a rogue landlord register, there is some work they do with them. So it might be a case of, you know, how many times has the council prosecuted a landlord? You know, those kind of questions. How does the council ensure that the landlords they're aware of don't have particular offences? Because again, this is not in any way my area of expertise, but I'm pretty sure certain offences will bar someone from being a landlord. You know, have to be a fit and proper person. So if it's a serious offence you've committed, you shouldn't be a landlord. So I think there's kind of questions like that. We might need to just get a little bit clever. You know, this is the sort of thing where we use our networks around the country to find someone who knows more than we do, and try to find out how the system works. So yeah, that's essentially, again, in one sense it might seem like that's a waste of time because the answer is zero, but that's kind of the point. We're setting the scene really for some ongoing thematic work around ensuring that the council is actually taking action against rogue landlords when it should do. And this question doesn't answer that. And it's going to be quite difficult to come up with a question which kind of gets to the nub of that, but that's what we're going to try and do. So
potentially
yeah.
there's a question around, because they did say the council investigates complaints. So although we wouldn't be able to sort of get information about who those complaints were about, we would potentially, I think, be able to ask how many complaints are made in relation to sort of private landlords, and and potentially even the nature of those complaints is something we'd be able to sort of get access to as well, which could give quite a wide picture of what's going on.
Yeah, because I mean, when I worked in the housing, next to the housing options team, I would overhear conversations when they were reading landlords their rights, and so clearly there is work that goes on. I think a lot of the time a housing officer rings up a landlord and says you need to start acting lawfully, and they do. So I don't know whether it's recorded or not, but yeah, I think the information that it happens. So the question is, how is it recorded, and how, if so, how do we ask for the information? But again, ultimately the long-term theme here is about the council using its powers to to make sure landlords aren't abusing people, basically. So yeah, anything else on this one?
It's just it's a good thing that the council could shout about. It's something that I think would really get the public on side. People you often see on Facebook and sort of other social media complaining about landlords. It would be such an easy win. Sort of popularity isn't necessarily important. If they came out and said, we've dealt with this many complaints around landlords and we're on tenant sides, and I know there's sort of like you say, they have to have relationships with these landlords because they need somewhere to house some people. But I think it could be a really good news story as well.
And I think that kind of section of the population are often, they're not the first ones to go talk to their counsellor. Because rogue landlords tend to abuse very vulnerable people. That's because they're easier to abuse. So and those people, they're often, certainly the guys I've worked with, they would never have considered going to a counsellor. So in one sense, that issue is kind of hidden, but it affects hundreds and hundreds of people. So you're absolutely right. That matters to people. It might not be something that they get organised and they kind of raise it in a way which other issues are raised. But that's something which I think is a really valuable thing to do, to actually almost kind of on behalf of a lot of people that we work with who are not in a position to go and bang a drum about it, is actually going to try and do it for them.